The following live broadcast will be rated ESVPG, even though rating can definitely change as the show goes on. Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to Your Shoulder Voice. It's been a while since we've been on here. Today, we're going to be having our open forum again, hopefully kicking off a brand new slew of episodes that we're going to be doing with so much going on in the news. We're just going to talk about anything. Remember, here at Your Shoulder Voice, your opinion is always valid. You talk about anything, give any opinion, no matter how unpopular it is. There is no judgment on this show. We may disagree with it, and we're allowed to do that. We may argue it, but there's no judgment. You should be free to say what you want, and that's what we're here for. So, you guys ready?
Woo!
Yeah.
I know Elena is. Elena's definitely ready.
I've been pumped all week.
All right, let's do it.
Love is everywhere. Love is everywhere. Where you go, I'm there. Together, together, always together. Together, together, always together.
All right, joining us on our panel tonight, we have Elena, and the King is here for us. We're going to talk about different subjects that have been going on. I know it's been a long time since we've done this show. I pulled out my microphone, literally cobwebs were stuck to it. So I was like, wow, it really has been a while at this point. But so much is going on. But I'm going to ask first, for anybody out there, don't forget you can engage with us in the chat, talk about anything you want. We'll respond live with you for any topic we have. Join the panel if you ever want to by going to our website, yourshouldervoice.com. You can just click a link and join us live on air if you want to. Other than that, just enjoy. So, Elena, what's been going on with you? You were super pumped to do this. So what's going on?
I got a new job. I'm officially a licensed hairstylist. So
Sweet.
That's really cool. Since the last time I was on here, I quit vaping and started again. So that's really
All
cool.
right. That's a lot that's going on already, I can tell.
Yeah.
All right, so that's good. Well, once you do this show, especially when you add drinking to it, yeah, we're definitely going to be smoking or vaping or whatever it happens to be.
Exactly.
Just like Bill is down here. Bill, how has things been going for you?
Well, I moved.
I see that. You have brightness behind you now.
Yes.
You're no
I don't
longer
like
in
that
like a
part.
dungeon.
I don't like that part. You know that. So, but yeah.
Yeah, believe
That's
me, Bill,
about it.
nobody likes you being out in daylight. It's fine.
And then I went for like the last couple of weeks. I went to this like really, trivia show. You know,
Shut up.
the guy that hosts it, like he's an ass.
He's a douchebag. I know he is. It's my trivia. People.
Yeah.
Anyway, glad to have you on here. Glad you're back. Glad we're doing this. I really do miss this. It does usually help a lot of people. But there's been so much going on. So I'm gonna, anybody on the panel have anything particular they want to talk about, outline some topics we were going to discuss already on the show. Just personally, it's been bothering me and some other people out there. I figured they're good things to talk about. But Elena, has there been any topics that you've seen recently that have, really gotten to you, whether good or bad?
Not that are coming to mind right now, but I'm sure once we get into it, I'll think of something.
Oh, you'll definitely get a few out there. Well, and Bill, before I bring up the first one, Bill, what about you? Anything particular that's on your mind, or anybody out there in the chat? Just feel free to let us know. We'll talk about whatever you want.
Netflix has the same shit over and over and over.
We started our very first show. We pointed that out actually, because it was the middle of the pandemic, and you really realized that Netflix didn't have jack shit on. Anytime it's like the same stuff. Well, because all these other streaming networks are so exclusive right now, and exclusivity is the way to go. Because, cut the cord, get rid of cable, but, pay $200 in fees for all these other services combined. But you don't have cable. So there it is.
I told my daughter, I said, right now, you can get Stars. I said, there's new stuff on Stars that's not on Netflix. And I said, for 10 months, it's $20. It's $2 a month right now. It's introduction thing. You can't beat that anywhere. I said, at least you can see something you don't ever see anymore other than watching the same Netflix shit.
You say you can't beat that anywhere, but there is something that beats that, and I hate to say it, cable. Like, literally cable. All that shit was included. You had one fee. And it was great to go to Netflix at the time because Netflix was, $8. So, yeah, let me do Netflix and cut the cord. That's fine. But now you add that to Stars and HBO Max and Disney Plus and Hulu and Amazon and CBS, Paramount. Like, everything has their own. And you have to pay it all separately. You're paying the same fee.
Paramount
One thing.
Plus.
Fuck off. All right, so
I went to watch Yellowstone. They told me it was on Paramount. I got Paramount. It wasn't on there. It was on Paramount Plus.
that's
You
the
got
other
to
thing
see
they're
it.
doing.
They fucking screw everything up. Just same thing with Disney, and then all of a sudden it's Disney Plus if you want to see the Marvel movies.
NBC did that. NBC is another one. Peacock streaming network did that, where you can sign up. It's only on Peacock, yeah, but you got to sign up for the Plus if you want to see even more. NBC was fucking local broadcast. It was free. And that's what we're dealing with everybody right now is just charging so much and going over the top to prove that business beats the person. Business beats citizen now in every way, even though it's citizen that keeps business alive. They're charging more, whether it be restaurants, bars that I work at. We've discussed that before. Groceries, gas, inflation. Everybody bitches about inflation, blaming whatever they can blame on it. Even though it's just a process of everything that's going around the world. It's not a particular entity. It's not just a president. It's not just left or right or anything like that. The prices are changing because businesses are greedy. 100%. And I see all these places, well, costs went up, so we have to charge more. Are your employees making more? No.
Nope.
The ones that have been there are not making it. Yeah, you're hiring new people in. Like I told my brother before, quit your job and get rehired. You'll get your raise. Just go back. It's the only thing you can do. So a trailer aired, and we were going to talk about this. We didn't have the show. We're still trying to find people to fill in some of these gaps. But so Ariel, the Little Mermaid, the preview dropped, and I guess people lost their shit.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, why? Okay, so why is it ridiculous they lost their shit?
Because Ariel is a fish.
Heck. I'm so in agreement on a lot of this too, because it's a fictional character. But
She's a fish.
I just like that. She's not even a fucking mermaid. She's a fish.
Well, one of my favorite arguments I heard was just like, well, as a redhead, like she was the only Disney princess I could look up to. I'm like, okay, first of all, you have Merida from Brave, who's a way better role model. First off, Ariel sold her voice to the devil to go meet a boy. Like, that's not a good. Fuck that. Merida's a way better role model for young redheaded girls. First, and second of all, she's a fucking fish. She can. Fish come in all colors. It doesn't fucking matter. And she still has red hair.
It's barely red.
It's red.
It's barely red now. It is not. It is barely red. I don't have a problem. Do you think the biggest problem that people actually have is the hair color or the skin color?
I think 100% it's her skin color is
You
the
think so,
issue
too?
people have.
I
It is.
think
It's
a
the
lot of
same-
times. Go ahead.
It's the same thing when they did Annie.
Mm-hmm.
When
Well,
they
and
did
Annie, I thought they did a great job of when they,
Yes, but the
do
thing
all this
was, is a lot of people had a problem with it because, which I don't understand. So the situation was when the Annie comic came out in the newspapers, it was a black and white comic. You couldn't tell what color anybody was in that comic because it was
Well,
just black outlines on paper and stuff. But Annie was always portrayed as a young white girl, and then whenever they changed it over, people had problems with it. So
Is it wrong to have problems with it?
counts on who you are and what you do.
Well, I mean, do you actually think it's wrong of people to have a problem with if Annie changed the color? Oh, Robin's here, by the way. Says Uncle Bill, she's still alive. Hi, Robin, miss you. Glad you're here.
Oh God.
Oh, what a greeting for family. Is it wrong people have a problem? She was drawn white. She was created white. She was created with blonde/red hair, depending on certain colorizations at the time. We're going with Annie right now. Is it wrong to dislike the change? Not is it wrong to do the change? Is it wrong to dislike the change?
I feel like kinda.
Why?
Because who fucking cares? The director of the film, I don't remember what his name is, and I'm sorry about that, but the director of the film came out and said, I just went in to all of the auditions, and she was, or I guess now I'm talking about Ariel again.
You are. That's okay.
Yeah. He was like, that actress came in and she had the best voice and she played the best part, and that's why I hired her for it. Like, I don't think she shouldn't have gotten the job because she's black.
Okay, but I agree with that. But the reason for outrage, and this is where my argument with that comes in, is because I agree with exactly what you said. Somebody with the best voice, he went to, like you said, we're going back to Little Mermaid, fuck Annie, went to the auditions and picked the best person. But this backlash comes with so many things being recast unnecessarily for the reason of the color or the color of their skin, to where it seems like everything released, when we see that change now, it appears to be recast strictly because, oh, she's a black actress. I didn't like the Little Mermaid when she was white with red hair. I'm not a fan of the Little Mermaid in any way, so it really doesn't bother me what color they make her for me. But I'm trying to understand the backlash, and I don't think it's necessarily wrong to be disappointed when somebody takes an icon of your childhood and changes the way you've grown up your entire life to view that icon. I don't think it's wrong to be upset about that, but I'm curious, if you think it is wrong, why do you think that that is actually wrong? Because it wouldn't be allowed in the other direction.
Because I don't
it's-
think that changing her skin should change how you view the storyline of The Little Mermaid.
It shouldn't,
Like
but
her skin color for that film, like there are different films where you couldn't change it because of like the background of the character or something
Right.
like that. I understand that. But in this scenario, in The Little Mermaid, the storyline does not change at all if she's black. Like it is the exact same story. She's just black.
what if
in
the
my
story
opinion.
did change?
How?
No, what if they did change the story somehow and they didn't follow the original story?
The only way I hope that they change it is that they don't just make the Ariel some little girl who sold her voice to the devil to meet a boy.
But when did you have you seen The Little Mermaid? Obviously, I think you have, Elena.
Yeah.
Obviously. Is that what you pulled from the movie when you first saw it as a young kid? Did you
Yeah.
pull it that she's selling her to a devil or selling her soul to the devil for this? Or did you see it like a girl gets to be a princess, an outcast gets to be a princess, somebody who never could be?
I didn't
Which-
see it like that at all. I saw it as like, this chick's dumb. Like, why would you ever why would you ever decide to lose your voice forever for a boy, like for a man, or like for another person? You know what I mean? For someone that you think is cute. Like, I think
How is
that's
that different than
stupid.
someone saying I'd take a bullet for somebody? Why?
Because they didn't actually take the bullet.
Well, I'm saying that
And by
somebody
her
who would.
losing her voice, she's not like saving his life. You know what I mean?
No, I understand that part, but for their own happiness or something like that. There's a lot of people, especially when you come to parent-child relationships, that would do anything, that would give up their left hand or something to make sure that their child had a happy life.
And
So,
I get that. And I think that that's a beautiful thing. But I don't think that that should ever happen for someone that you've never actually met.
well, in agreement with that,
Like,
but
she
that's
just
the whole
stalked him from
story to begin
afar.
with. Yeah, she's kind of the stalker in this scenario.
Oh,
I mean, like
absolutely.
I said, I have some problems with it just because I do relate that it's been done so much that it's hard to differentiate what is done based on talent versus what was done because we need to include color.
Yeah.
And that's where I think people are upset instantly from it. I watched it. It looks like it's going to be a very good movie. I think it's probably going to be a good remake of the film. I have no problem with that whatsoever. But I'm starting to get on the side of people, and I hate to say this because I never was, that are saying this casting is, well, I've said the casting thing was going too far, but where everybody is just trying to stir up hate for everything out there.
Who
There's
is
been
everybody though? The thing
Anybody
is,
you're hearing from. I'm not talking
Like the
I'm not-
majority, the loud people.
but
Yeah.
you're hearing from the adults, okay? Little Mermaid's a cartoon. When I grew up,
anymore.
cartoons were made for kids, and it's not the same anymore. And that's the problem with it. You make a cartoon, it's supposed to be for a little kid. Kids are supposed to watch it and like it. And I'm sure some kids are having some questions. Hey, Mom, Little Mermaid's not the same color anymore. And they may just blow it off, but the adults are not letting it go.
The adults aren't, but at the same time, you can be taking away from things that they valued. I'm not saying the adults are right in their arguments, because most of the time they're not. They're adults. They're dumb as fuck. But you could be taking away something that they saw. Maybe they looked up to Ariel. I don't know why, because like you said, she's a fucking fish. But they looked
And
up
she's
to
a
Ariel
dumb
as a kid.
fish.
And
She
they
forgot
want
the name
to.
of a fork.
But they want to carry that story over. Maybe their daughter has red hair. Maybe their daughter feels like an outcast with freckles. Red hair and freckles is hard to come by nowadays. It's not
Then
as
watch the
popular.
movie Brave. It's actually great
Right.
for young girls to watch, and she has red
But-
hair and freckles.
But the preceding argument here was the fact that they grew up and wanted to introduce Ariel, somebody they grew up with and looked up to their child, who now does not resemble their child. They feel something is taking away. It's the exact same argument that have been given from the opposing side of people of color that say, my child can't relate to this, so let's change it for us. But we don't have the option. So who's to say that we can't just eventually children are going to look at this, and I feel this is the argument that I do support when it comes to this, is that kids are going to look at that it's okay if you're white to be something else because white is not bad, but it's not okay if you're anything else to be white. That's the problem, I think, that they're delivering a lot of times, because they're seeing all these characters recast a multicolor, but they'll never see somebody that a white person can do it as good as a black person as well. And that message, I think, is one that gets lost in there. And that's one thing kids would look at, because they'll never see, at least in our lifetime, it seems, a role taken over by from another race or culture to ours. Some are justified. Aladdin, very justified in recasting in every way because of obviously where it takes place. But the other one, do you ever think that kids might get that message? And I know you can say blame it on the parents, but parents is why we're in this situation to begin with.
So you think there ought to be segregation? You think they ought to make a movie of different genres, of different races and stuff like that, and make 2 or 3 of each one so that they can show?
They did that in the
each different
70s, big
culture?
time. They did that back
I
in the
know. Well,
70s.
that's blaxploitation, and that's totally different. So,
But no, I don't
I'm
think
just
they
talking
should.
about-
I just think it shouldn't be a big deal in either direction. But at the same time, we can say what's happening now should not be a big deal. I'm sure everybody can agree with that. You know, it shouldn't be a big deal if they're taking over the roles. But we do know for a fact if it was reversed, it would be a big deal. And that is a message that I think is being sent to other kids that I don't think is right. Robin also says here, Robin, don't call me Mark Williams. Adults, not children, have the problem. And I agree with it. I do agree with that. But they said, I've heard a lot of people say growing up as a kid, the adults who are arguing now, it said as a kid, they never had that role model to look up to because there was not a lot of black people in cinema to look up to, especially when it came to children and Disney fairy tales, stuff like that. So that was the argument, that as a kid, they didn't have that role model. Whether that was actually true or not, I don't know, or they decided to jump on a wagon later in life and be like, okay, yeah, I have a problem with it now that I think back on it, which people are doing with every movie out there today. Now I have a problem with it. Let's discuss it. Danny's here. Danny says there are others like Mulan, The Princess and the Frog, many more. And I mean, there are. Mulan's a good example that was changed, and that was recast, I think, appropriately in a lot of sense, even though the movie sucked. The remake was not that good.
Mhm.
Princess and the Frog. That's the thing. Princess and Animals, for crying out loud. It's a fucking cartoon, like you were saying, Bill. But you don't think that there's any kind of loss of the messages if you only go with one direction in correcting our world?
Well, I honestly think that a lot of the issue, like you just said, like you were saying, like maybe a kid that wants to go see it that does have, like, is white and has red hair, if they're like, hey, mom, like Ariel doesn't look like me anymore, I feel like it would be very simple for that parent. I mean, depending on the age of the child, of course. But I feel like it'd be very simple to be like, well, yeah, when they're making a movie, they have to cast and they just picked whoever was going to do the best job, and she did the best job. Like, I feel like that would be pretty simple to have that conversation with the child.
I think it kind of would be, but some kids I don't think understand the process of movie.
That's fair.
When it's still fantasy to them. It's not really based on casting or anything. They still see it as real. I mean, I still think Superman's real, Christopher Reeve. So I don't think they always see the movies. And your argument is solid. It's absolutely solid. That's what the parents should do, but it wouldn't work the other way. If a black girl said to her family watching a new movie that was recast by a white girl, doesn't look like me anymore, do you think it's going to be that easy conversation?
I think in a perfect world, it should be.
Well, that
Oh, wait, hang on. We're all going to another planet.
that's a perfect world we're looking at, and that is my argument. What you just said in a perfect world, it should be. That's the goal we should be looking for. That's where we should be looking going, not all one direction. And it's not just black white. The remake of Hocus Pocus, or not remake, the sequel to Hocus Pocus came out. Don't know if anybody saw it.
Not yet.
Huh?
I did.
Not yet.
I saw
It was entertaining for what it was. A lot of kids I know that watched it absolutely loved it, so that's a
Okay.
good sign. But one of the problems they had, I was listening to the director, and they were talking about the film and some other things online I saw too. But they're bitching about, well, the guy was after the girl, and we don't really like that image anymore. That a guy should be interested in a girl like that or looking for her in the original Hocus Pocus.
Mhm.
Lil comes up, says something about your melons or something like that, or big casabas, I think is what the word she used, because of something he said. And that was like, that's so inappropriate. That's so wrong. People talk that way. So they eliminated any kind of love thing. Yeah. But they eliminated any kind of love thing. Make sure it's 3 girls, one of each ethnicity, of course, which seems to be required. Fine. And like I said, the movie was entertaining. But why do you have to change to appease? Your movie, the original Hocus Pocus, lasted for 30 fucking years, so much that people were just dying for another movie. Like they were pumped.
Okay.
They wanted it forever. So what you did was not bad. Are you saying everybody that watched that movie and liked that movie now is an asshole?
I got a question.
I don't
We
think
gotta
that
go
they
back.
should have taken. Sorry, go ahead, Bill.
So the Ariel thing, Elena was saying something about the fact of this person came in and they were the best person for this. All right.
That's what the director said. Yeah.
Yes.
Right. So this is a cartoon, right?
Well, the new one is live action.
Oh, it's live action.
Yeah, the new
All
one
right.
is live action.
So did they actually say that this is the right person for this because she has the best voice or whatever?
The
Or
director did.
That's
Or
what the
did they-
director
or-
came out and say.
or did they already have the thought in their mind that, hey, we're going to make this, a young lady of color?
And I
here
do
in this
believe
show.
I do believe in today's Hollywood. I'm not going to directly blame directors for this, but I do believe that has a big impact. I think that you have
do.
a better chance being of color in today's world because people will see it as something to publicize, to market, to put it out
And you're talking
there.
about just in Hollywood, correct?
Yeah, pretty much in Hollywood, yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, Hollywood, it doesn't matter. They'll tell you everything in the world, but if you go through all the actors' stories and stuff like that, all the directors, producers, stuff like that, the writers, all they care about is the money. Doesn't matter
That's
what it
what,
is.
and stuff like this, even the Little Mermaid preview, it's building up hype. And like they've said before, there's no such thing as bad publicity. Because people will see it, people will want to, people would probably throw it under the radar. Did anybody see the remake of The Little Mermaid they did about 2 years ago? Nope. There was no hype surrounding. There was absolutely nothing in there. And that's the catch. Now everybody will see this one because they want to. So talking back to, we'll go a little bit with movies and what's his name? Trying to remember his name now. Tony Blevins.
Michael Myers.
Tony Blevins. Anybody know
Michael
who Tony
Myers.
Blevins is?
No.
Yeah, he used to pitch for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
All right. Well,
But
that's
it's
not the
pronounced
one.
Blevins. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Well, I'm talking about Tony Blevins, who was the vice president of Apple.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Anybody know what happened to him?
No.
Recently. So he's no longer the vice president of Apple. If you've ever watched TikTok, have you seen the TikToks where they go, "Hey, how much money? How'd you make your money? What do you do?" Where they run to a random person in a car or a celebrity or something. Okay. So they did this to Tony Blevins. And I can't remember the exact, let's see if I can find the exact response here. But it was something like, I buy stuff and he goes, and I fondle big-breasted women or something.
That's all I ever see on TikTok.
I mean, I see stuff like that all the time, actually.
Sorry,
Here it
Lena.
is.
Just
I
saying.
race cars, play golf, and fondle big-breasted women, but I take weekends and the major holidays off. He is no longer the CEO, the vice president of Apple for that reason. Right or wrong? For a
Right.
joke in a TikTok. Why right? I told you we're going to butt heads here.
Because he's a public figure, and you can't come out when you represent a company saying something as disgusting like that. You could have said that at home with like your guy friends. You could have said that in a bar setting, but saying that on the internet, I think is extremely inappropriate.
But it's
because
a
he
random TikTok thing. It wasn't pre-planned to him. He didn't tweet this out and pre-thought it out. Somebody ran up to his car on a TikTok video, says, "What are you doing?" And there's a reason I'm asking too, because this line, he didn't come up with it. It's a line from the motion picture Arthur about being rich back in 1982, I think it is.
Okay, but it's still inappropriate.
But it was comedy. He was quoting a line when someone asked Arthur exactly what he did with it. He was
Then
quoting a
he
line
should have
from a
said
movie.
before quoting it, and I'm going to quote this movie and say that, and then laughed like
You're
something
on
like
this.
that.
He did laugh. I mean, obviously, because he was making a joke out of it. That requires a loss of your career to be
I
able
don't
to.
think-
You'd never even heard of the person. He was vice president of Apple, and you didn't even know who he was. How big of a public figure was he really?
To be the vice president of Apple, pretty big.
No, but I mean a public figure, not just to be in his position within Apple, but a public figure. Neither one of you knew who he was. I had to double check his name because I couldn't remember who it was. You know,
I
he
just
wasn't
think-
that. He's not somebody people look up to and go, "Oh my God, you like big-breasted women? I do not want to be like you." Are you telling me no women like guys with nice butts?
That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying if it was a woman and she said the exact same thing, it would have still been inappropriate.
But she would have gotten away with it. I
But
would.
more
I would
acceptable.
believe that.
I believe she would have. I don't think
Yeah.
she should have. But
I-
I think that we need to start holding people accountable for what they say and do, whether it's a joke or not.
But if you're quoting, as Robbins here says, Arthur was hilarious, and it was. So where's the line? So if a movie was funny, I realized 40 years ago, you know, before you were born, shortly after I was, and you know, when Bill was in his 50s. So
Yes.
it's like,
And yes, I had Robin and all her sisters watch all the old movies. So yeah.
but you did, and if it was funny then, at what point was this guy supposed to just know that this line is no longer funny? I'm supposed to dislike something that I once thought was funny.
Because when someone walked up to him and started making a TikTok and asked him what he did for work and how much does he make, they didn't say, "What's your favorite movie?" quote. They asked him, "What do you do for work and how much do you make?"
But I quote movies all the time and TV shows and all that. Sometimes it's just spur of the moment you do it. My point is not that the comment is
White
appropriate, but
trash
is it?
Christmas.
How long do you think somebody had to totally work to get to that position in Apple? How much of their career where they never thought because they liked a movie and quoted it, they lose their job? It turns out he
Because-
stepped down, but it was under the duress of you're fired or you stepped down, pretty much.
I just think that we need to start holding people accountable, men and women, for saying inappropriate fucking things.
Where's the
So
comedy?
that's why I agree with this. No, you can be funny. Like, that's fine. But all of your jokes should not be along the lines of sexual harassment. Like, that should not be your only thing. Because if that's your only thing, it's not fucking funny.
But judging by what you're saying and what he should have preempted his thing with and been very clear with his words, he did not say in there unwillingly fondle big-breasted women or women who do not want to be. These could just be he happens to go for them, and most of his past lovers or anything like that could have been big-breasted women.
But that wasn't even the question that they asked.
But it's what he does because he's rich. Look at dipshit in the White House earlier, grab him by the pussy, you know? Like,
Yeah,
that's
I
what
don't
you do
agree with
because
that either. I
don't
also
agree
think
with
that's
it, but I'm
fucking
saying
disgusting.
top of it, when you're rich, there are certain things you get to do, whether it's somebody you look up to or not, whether they're a musician, a celebrity as far as movies go, Hollywood, or anything like that. When you get the money, you get certain perks with that just don't fit in. Do I think it was the right thing to say? No. Do I think it's an offense that caused you to lose your job? I think that is ridiculous, especially when you've worked that hard to get that high in a company. A demotion,
I
suspension.
understand, but I'm a fucking bartender and a hairstylist. And if one of my clients, like if I was working, probably not at the bar because that's a little bit more laid back, but if I'm working as a hairstylist and someone comes in and they say, "Oh, what do you do in your free time?" And I just look at this person and say, "I fondle big-breasted women," I'd lose my job too.
I think it was funny shit. Like I really would, because I'm not in my head when you answer it spur of the moment like that. I think you're snappy, you're thinking on your feet, you're being funny, and that was a funny comment. I'm not in my head. I have never gone with anybody going, I really think that you go around and just find big breasted women go, hey, I don't think that's what you do. I don't
No,
think
and
he
I don't
races
think that
cars.
either. And if someone were to say that to me, I wouldn't have been offended. I would have thought it was fucking funny, but I could see how other people would find it offensive. And I don't think that just because I don't find it offensive, that other people's feelings aren't valid.
So if
Do you know what I'm
were
saying?
doing
Yeah, I
if you're doing
understand
a
that it could
guy's
have been
hair,
hurt. Apologies are
if you were
fine.
doing a guy's hair and he sat there in the chair and you were doing his hair or whatever, and he said, "Well, I fondle big-breasted women," you
I
wouldn't
would
find
fire
it
him as a
offensive like
client
that?
because that would make me uncomfortable. If
Right.
some man
So
was sitting in my chair,
you
I would
would.
fire him as a client.
So it counts on the point in time and what's going on. It's just like the comedians nowadays. Comedians get away with everything in the world, and it is. And the funniest thing is April Macy is one of the top comedians in the world because she's traveled all the countries. And all of her, well, not all of her, but 95% of her material is derogatory towards men, but she gets away with it. Now,
That's my.
Andrew
This
Dice,
is where I'm going to cut you off,
Andrew
Bill.
Dice Clay never
Well,
got
let him
away with it.
finish.
He has no career anymore. And Andrew Dice Clay started it a long time ago, and because he made bad comments about women, and it wasn't like for a certain woman or anything, it was women in general, and that's why he is no longer a comedian, nowhere doing anything anymore. And it's a lot of people are like that. You go to you go back to the Kings of Comedy and stuff like that. Their first beginning of the stuff was awful. And you go back to, and you guys probably neither one of you know him, Buddy Hackett
I
used to
know
be
who
in
Buddy
Las
Hackett is.
Vegas.
Wax
Buddy
cell.
Hackett was in Las Vegas. He had the dirtiest show in the world. Him, Red Fox from Sanford and Son.
Oh.
Everyone thought it was hilarious, got men and women. But it is what is going on in culture today and going on in life today, because everything is changing, and it's perception, and it's how you perceive, and it's how you're raised. All right. And if you get a better perception, and I'm not saying anything bad against you, Elena, what I'm saying is this is the way you are. There's nothing wrong with the way you are, because the fact of you're taking a stand. All right. My daughter's the same way. My daughter's a hairstylist. My daughter's a makeup artist, and my daughter works at a weed company, and she won't take any shit from anyone.
What was
And
your
she's only
response,
24
Elena?
years old.
Go ahead, Elena, respond.
My point is, so Bill is just talking about comedians. We're not talking about a comedian. We're talking about whoever the fuck of Apple, first of all. I understand that, yes, a lot of male comedians have been canceled and female comedians have not for doing similar bits, but I am the last person that will sit here and listen to a narrative of the poor men. I don't give a fuck. Men have been putting through women through the fucking ringer from the beginning of time. They have been disrespecting women. They have been like, it's just so fucking disgusting. So no, I don't think that men should keep getting away with bullshit. Do I think women should be making derogatory comments on a stage about generalizing all men? No, I don't think that's funny either. I think if that's your only bit, you're not a good comedian. I think everyone's comedic show needs variety. The thing that makes you liked by a lot of people is having a lot of variety in any aspect of anything.
Or doing something different too. I mean, it's something unique. And sadly, I think all this type of humor that is now so offensive to everybody is going to make a comeback at some point, because nobody's going to be used to hearing it, and it's going to be shocking.
No, and that's
it's going to
fine.
be funny.
And like I said, I don't want anyone to get it twisted. Like shit like that doesn't offend me. Like it's really, really, really hard to offend me. But I can understand why other people would be offended by that, and I'm not okay with that. I think that by what was he, the vice president?
Vice president of Apple. I keep saying CEO too, sorry, but you're fine.
But like by the vice president of Apple, I would understand his comment if it was, hey, tell us a joke, or hey, tell us your favorite movie line. But that wasn't the case. Like he could have still made a joke within that without saying something that outlandish, in my opinion.
I'm not saying he couldn't have. Like I said, I'm not really defending the comment he made. I'm defending the punishment. I'm going against I'm defending him over the punishment. That's what I think is ridiculous, because people are refusing it to see it from another angle. Once you found out that he was quoting something from a film that everybody loved as a comedy 40 years ago, people should have cooled off a little bit and thought, like you said, it was inappropriate. Maybe you should have mentioned you're quoting from a film or something like that, and realize that he wasn't saying it. And I'm going to go back to the previous president that said it off the cuff, wasn't quoting anything. And I don't agree or disagree. You can have your opinions on that for everybody. It's not a political thing. But his was off the cuff. This was just a quote from a movie. Once that happened, then it should have been, yeah, it wasn't really the right quote to say. But we understand that you're not actually saying that's what you do.
Right, and that's cool too, but you also have to understand who your audience is. I highly doubt that
Who understands who a
TikToker.
TikTok audience is, though, nowadays?
No, no, I'm
Especially when
talking.
you're old.
No, I'm talking about the person who made that video and went up to him
Mm.
and asked to him. I highly, highly, highly doubt that that person knew that film. Just because most TikTokers are Gen Zs, happened way before their time. So by what would happen in my head is I would see this person who's talking to me. They probably don't know what the fuck I'm talking about, which means their audience probably also doesn't know what the fuck I'm talking about. Like, there was an opportunity to make a joke right there, but it would have only been funny if that audience understood it. And by them just looking at that TikToker, probably could have figured out that that audience wasn't going to understand it.
But if it's something you constantly say, it could have been questions he's been asked 100 times, and it's just his go-to response. It's just,
But is
anyway.
that smart?
I don't think
have a
it's
question.
not smart. I don't think it's the most
Do you-
intelligent thing he could have done, but I don't think it wasn't smart. Go ahead, Bill.
Because I don't know this stuff. So with TikTok, do you have a regular audience or everybody sees it?
Everybody
So
has
TikTok's-
access to it.
Yeah, everybody has access to it. Your followers will see it before anyone else, basically. So the whole thing with TikTok is it's an algorithm with everyone's For You page. If you use the right hashtags, if your video's getting a lot of views, then it'll push it out to more people to get even more views.
You're using too many big words for me. I heard algorithm and I was thinking
before I
about
get-
something with music. So
Robin says, I think I missed this. I don't know if I actually read this one yet, but she said it was bad because he was a man of power at a high post, which I agree
Highly
with.
agree.
And Rhonda also says that it was bad taste, but I don't think it should have cost him his job. And that's where my argument's coming in. I am in no way saying it wasn't bad taste. Not that you didn't understand it, but give the guy some fucking credit. Okay, once
Okay,
you
but
found
when
out
are
he
we
was
gonna
quoting a
stop-
movie,
When are
You
we going to
can't.
stop cutting men slack for being disgusting?
when 20-year-olds or 40-year-olds, then you can. But you're dealing with people who are 50, 60 years old who grew up this way. When you get people who did not grow up against these movies that always did show them comedy and gave them comedy lines that were often geared towards raunchy teen comedies or just making people laugh, then you can start bitching about them quoting shit that they have no reason to be quoting. But right
And that
now, they grew up. And you're
Keith, I
if-
understand your thought process on it, but like I could name so many men in my life that are in their late 50s, early 60s that don't say shit like that because they know it's disgusting and disrespectful, even though they found those films funny.
well, that's good
thank
for
you very
them.
much. I don't
But
say
not
that,
every-
so, yes.
But everybody learns at a different pace and some don't. Some are not around this movement. Some are. Some just, it's a line that sticks with them. I make fun of fucking Kelly Bundy all the time for being a dumbass. I quote her all the time. Not because I like dumb blonde women, which, well, we'll get to that later. But but not for any other reasons besides it was funny. And I've been doing and quoting Kelly Bundy since she was on the air. It is instilled within me. He may quote not just Arthur, but many movie lines throughout his life because they stick with him. And people are failing to realize that it's not about being 50 or 60 years old. It's about when you are 50 or 60 years old. Only the last 10 years has this become so problematic, like openly problematic, I should say. Okay, that you say stuff like this. Only about the last 10 years. So they spent 40 plus years without this being a problem. And in 10 years, let's change everything you liked, everything you quoted, everything you thought. Think twice about everything you do, no matter how you were brought up. And another thing that I just watched a show. I don't know if you've ever heard it, called Brain Games. I love that show. It was canceled, but it just had its last episode about a year ago, and I was watching it. They were talking about adult and kids' brains, that when you're young, the things you learn stick with you. And they're really hard to get rid of until you're like the age of 16. And around 24 is your peak. And that's where your brain actually starts to have a harder time absorbing new information as an adult. So unlearning things is not as easy for people who are 50 and 60, even though they do it, as it is for someone like you. It's not as easy for me as it was 10, 15 years ago, which I consider myself one of the people in the generation that actually did start bridging the gap.
No, and Keith, I understand, I hear you, and I get what you're saying, but like there's things that I quote every single day that I don't take into my professional career because it's inappropriate.
Right. And there's things I don't either, but it slips. I work in a bar and I say
I'm
the
a
word fuck all the
hairstylist.
time.
No, I get that. At the bar, I say fuck all the time.
Well, no, let
Fuck's
me
my
explain.
favorite fucking word. My second favorite word's cunt. I have a potty mouth. I get it. When I'm at the salon, I know what I can and can't say. So I don't let it slip in front of my clients because it's inappropriate.
I'm going to get to
So
Rhonda in a second. She's got a comment. Go ahead, Bill.
You don't say stuff in your professional career. All right. So this CEO, vice president guy, was he in the building where he worked? Was he on the job when he said that?
No, he was in his own car. They approached him in his car. That's what this TikTok group does.
So he wasn't at his job. He wasn't in his career. He said what he wanted to say because he was out and about somewhere.
That's another thing that I agree with. I don't think you should be on your toes for public attention at all times like this, especially when you're not.
I don't either, but he knew the guy was interviewing on TikTok.
But maybe he doesn't realize. Head of Apple is not.
He
a good
knew the
argument.
guy was
Maybe he doesn't
interviewing
quite
him
get
on
TikTok.
TikTok,
But
or did the guy just film him and then put it on TikTok?
they usually say we're doing TikToks of people, and that's not. They usually do let them know about that.
Okay.
But my
I don't
argument,
know about TikTok. That's why
I don't.
Asked, so.
You never TikTok. You never see the beginning or end of anything. But it's there. My argument when I was saying with you about saying fuck all the time at the bar and stuff like that. I know it's okay. I work at a bar. I've done it for the last 20 years. I was doing elementary school kids dance, a daddy-daughter dance, and they gave me this really big gift package. And I was just floored, and they gave me them. I was like, this is fucking awesome. Oh, fuck shit, sorry. Right in the middle to a daddy-daughter dance. It was a mistake. It was not something I would ever say. I try to watch my language so much, but it's instilled. I talk like that way in front of a crowd almost all the time. They could have gone as extreme as make me lose my career based on something that was just instilled, and it just was an emotional thing that came out. With me, it was an emotional thing, not necessarily him. But I don't think I should have lost my career for that. It was an oopsie. Fortunately, most of the dads knew me, obviously, because a lot of people know me, and the school was good with that. And they chalk it up to one of their best memories and moments there. And that's my thing. Do you remember when I still hear about it? I just remember when you let the F-bomb on the daddy-daughter dance. Like, that was one of the best moments. It was not intentional. But
no, and I get that it wasn't
sometimes.
intentional and it did slip, but I don't think he quoted that entire thing as like an accidental slip up. Like I think like you said earlier, he was trying to make a joke and it went south.
And Rhonda says right here, this is still America and we have freedom of speech. For an America right now that argues so much on how we don't have freedoms, they sure want to take away what we do have.
My issue with everyone always bringing up freedom of speech is, yes, we absolutely do have freedom of speech, but we don't have freedom of speech without consequences.
To a point, you do. Well, the freedom of speech is supposed to be freedom of speech without consequences. I mean, we're not talking about
because
slander.
There's certain things that aren't
libel.
appropriate.
Appropriate is not constitutional. And I don't want to go into the constitutional defense here because I hate that argument a lot, just like you probably hate the freedom of speech argument. But appropriate is not that's not what that's based on. It is the ability to say what you want. Half of the people who have become famous and who have become idolized and who are just up there that everybody looks up to did things that were not appropriate, were not normal, were different. They thought differently. That's what's needed to get somewhere sometimes. You have to be able to step out of that box. You can't have everything you say like everybody else, or else you'll achieve nothing but what everybody else achieves. You will be nowhere except for the same place as everybody else. Every comedian that's ever made it, and we talked about comedians briefly, made it because they were unique. They had something different, and sometimes it was vulgarity, sometimes it wasn't. Everybody.
But you can be vulgar without being offensive. Like, you can be vulgar without saying something that's disrespectful to a demographic of people.
Give me a for instance, please, just for a second.
I want to know what you can say vulgar. I actually want an instance too, because I know somebody is offended no matter what you say vulgar.
Well,
Yes.
absolutely. Somebody, no matter what, will always like. Okay, that was a bad. No, I understand what you're saying. That I used my words poorly there. But like, you can be vulgar without saying something that like puts women down or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, you can say something vulgar. Like, I can say the word cunt. That's vulgar, but I'm not like calling a specific person a cunt. I'm not saying men are cunts. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but there's some people that will be very offended with the fact that you just used that word.
And
I
that's
know you
also one
do.
of my favorite arguments in the world because I never liked the word until I saw a video of an Australian dude, and he goes, you know, everyone like the difference in America and Australia is because in America you guys get really offended of the word cunt, and here in Australia we get really offended of school shootings. So that's when I realized it's a fucking word. Why do I hate it? It's way fun to say, and it's shocking.
That is what I wish people would do. What you just said is my biggest argument. It's their fucking words. You don't have to take them so seriously. You don't have to assume, and that's where I think the problem comes in. People automatically assume this is derogatory, not reference or comedy. And there is a difference when we grew up new. I watched Andrew Dice Clay, I watched George Carlin, I watched all these fuckers have their fun, and I watched women in the audience laughing their ass off, and some of them even quoting them even more. They made fun of women, they made fun of men, they made fun of anybody, because sometimes poking fun at stuff, it's in the direction, is funny, it is humorous, maybe not to everybody, but don't deny everybody that does find stuff like that funny and doesn't really see it as degrading, because it's not always. It's pointing out things that are different. Black people can say, go back to 80s, 90s, white men can't jump, white men can't dance, and all that. And you know what?
Because it's
Most
true.
of them fucking can't. Exactly. But it's funny to point it out. It is a degrading thing to say to white men, and I shouldn't be using the white men as an example, but it is a degrading thing to say, but it's true. It's absolutely true.
Like I've said, I am personally not offended. I just get why other people would be. And I really, 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 at some point would like to live in a society that like that women aren't targeted for just things. And I feel like there could be a lot of women out there that felt targeted by that comment because it did not come from a comedian, first of all. Like, I know that people that aren't comedians can make jokes, that's fine, but it's not like they signed up to, like, by scrolling on TikTok. I don't know. Like, there's a difference between what he said in that circumstance versus buying money and going to a comedy show and then being offended. If you bought money to see a specific comedian who is known for saying outlandish things, then you get offended. That's a you problem, not the comedian.
If you buy it, but why do you buy it? Because at one point you saw or heard it for free. That's what got you interested in that comedian to begin with. At some point,
Well,
it was
yeah, but
free
but we're not talking about a comedian. We're talking about the vice president of Apple.
But you just were. But you know what? Like you said, a group of people are offended, and I want to get to Robin and Rhonda in a minute. A group of people were offended. Cry me a fucking river over offended, because a lot of people were not. And if you don't like it, just like you say, then don't watch TikTok, something that allows the biggest expression or freedom of expression this world has ever seen. It's right up there with YouTube and the Facebook stuff. It allows you to do what you want. There are TikToks out there that are way more vulgar and aggressive and degrading, and I'm sure you've seen some of them, than him quoting a line from a 1981 movie.
No,
if you don't like it, don't watch it. Talk to TikTok. Change my algorithms. I don't want to see this. TikTok is everything. There's every type of category, every type of offense on there. And stop making everybody else pay because you're offended. Extreme offense and actually going on there and saying, I like to fondle big-breasted women out of the blue repeatedly and being known as that kind of douchebag is a different thing. Quoting a movie is not. That's not what he goes around saying.
And I understand, but if I said the exact same thing behind my salon chair to a guest, even though I was making a joke, I would also lose my job.
That's fair, because the place you're working for does not want somebody who does that. But there are
And
other
Apple
places that
doesn't
would
either.
not cause you to lose your job. And by that
Correct.
same argument, so your job and the person you work for should not speak for every other business out there. And that's what's happening right now. People who disagree and don't like that are speaking for everybody else who doesn't mind.
No, but clearly Apple did. And now you have a problem with it because he lost a job. He just had to, he still works for the company.
He resigned or stepped down. I don't know where he is exactly at this point. I just found out this story actually like 2 days ago, and I haven't really gotten too far into it.
But you're saying the issue is that it's because I work in a place where they don't want that type of behavior around. Clearly, neither do them. But you.
That's not true. The problem is not that the company doesn't want it, just like everything that's been going on in Hollywood and all this. The problem is they're under pressure because everybody tells them if they don't do something, there's a problem. It's the pressure the companies are under to get rid of these people, whether it's statements made by Roseanne, statements made by Bill, or anything like that, that people disagree, White Trash Christmas, that people just disagree with, that are pressuring you. If you don't get rid of this guy, we're going to boycott your product. That is not a company disagreeing. That is a company giving in because the majority of the people out there are telling you that you should believe differently. You should believe exactly like I do. That is wrong because we live in the greatest country in the world that we hate half of the fucking people here. We literally do.
Personally, I hate most of the people here.
Okay. I'm sorry. At least half of the people here.
Yeah, it's at least half.
Okay. Robin says, though, you don't have to be a publisher, publicist, or media person to fight for your freedom of speech. And that's an outstanding
But it's not freedom without consequences.
But that is not what is constituted. The reason I'm saying that is because people's freedom of speech, when they're arguing, they are arguing a constitutional right. Nowhere in that right does it say without consequences, because if there are consequences, it is not freedom of speech. Freedom, no consequences of speech. However, there are things that go against libel and slander and defamation. So there are exceptions to those rules, but the actual freedom of speech is speech without consequence. To be able to say what you want, to be able to talk against things that you disagree with, to do what we are doing right now on this show. You're free to have your opinion. I'm free to have mine. Bill's free to drink. It's what we do.
Not allowed to say White Trash Christmas.
Right. But I mean, that's another one right there. And whether it's somebody just tweeting out something, and as much as people know I was not a fan of the former president, I thought tweets was a ridiculous reason for people to argue it, because that is a basic freedom. When you sign up for these things, you have a basic freedom entitled to you. And you can lie if you want.
However, Twitter had terms of conditions that he violated. So Twitter, a private company, said, no, thank you.
I agree with that. And that's why I said when you sign up for even Facebook or anything like that, they do have terms and conditions you must abide by. That is a company's stance on the situation, though. It is not the direct freedom to say what you want. Rhonda says, I think yelling fire in a crowded theater is another expression. It's freedom with consequence that you're talking about right there.
Yeah.
But that's with endangerment. You know, you create a riot with something like yelling fire in a crowded theater. You create stampedes, and there was just a stampede. I don't remember where it was. I just briefly read the story, and a whole bunch of people were killed in it. And it was at, I think, a soccer game or something like that. It was a big
All
stampede.
I'm saying is that in most jobs or careers, there are things that you can and can't say. Depending, and it doesn't matter on if you're at the highest end of the totem pole, you make $40 billion a year, or if you make minimum wage. There are things you can and can't say within any job. Even if I'm off the clock, not at the salon, if I get on Facebook and I'm like dropping my boss's name, like first and last, she's such a fucking bitch. She's which I don't believe any of that. I love her to pieces. But if I'm doing all of that, no, love her to pieces. But if I'm doing all of that, I'm still going to lose my job, even though I had freedom of speech and I wasn't on the clock when I said it.
You might, but you don't have a reason to. I don't think you should. You're allowed to have a bad opinion of your boss. Who doesn't? You're allowed to talk to other people.
And you have options. You have options after the fact.
Yes, you could.
And so does he. And he has options too. He can go.
There's not when you're vice president of Apple. There's not a whole lot of options that don't give you that same level of power.
Oh no, he's not going to be a billionaire anymore. I'm so sad. He'll find a job.
I'm talking about the fact that if someone did something like that to you, you could sue their ass.
Why
He's not going to try to sue Apple.
I mean, if that was you,
something that fucked up, and he could get another job. Just like how if I lost my job at the salon, I could go get another one.
We're talking a little bit different level of job.
No, I know, but it should the consequence should be the same for everyone. I'm holding everyone at the same level.
if he would have gone on stage and he would have done a press, or he'd been speaking as the CEO of Apple, I keep saying it, but as the vice president of Apple, obviously, yes, it's inappropriate. You're representing the company at that point. He wasn't representing his company. He was saying what he does with his money, and he was quoting somebody who made a very funny line that people used to love a long time ago. And it was wrong, and it was inappropriate. It was not something that upheaves your entire life. A
But
life
like
that
I
for
just
40
said, I could
years
do the
that was
same
allowed.
thing. It could go like I could make a TikTok about how much I hate my salon and hate my boss, and it could go viral, and I could lose my job too,
You're right.
even
You
even
could.
though I'm not on the clock.
And you know what? If I just hired you in and you only worked for me for a year, I probably would. But if you worked for me for a very long time and showed me respect and worked hard to get where you were and you were an asset to my company and all that, I would not. And there's a big difference there.
But that's
Becau-
that's you. That's not everyone.
No, but that's the proof that everybody is different. Not everybody has to abide by those standards. I mean, I don't want to. Oh, let me go here. We got our Robin. Elena has her own points and opinions, and that is great. And I think it absolutely is. And I think that's why we do this. It's because we don't always see eye to eye. And I already told Elena pre-hand of the show, I said, we're going to butt heads. I was like, because I knew she didn't even know what the topics were, but I knew some of the stuff that was going on. And I'm usually on her side with a lot of stuff relating to this. And this is one where I'm getting really tired of it because you can't fucking do anything. You're supposed to walk eggshells around your wife, not the world.
See, that's where I disagree. I think around your wife, you should be your most regular, authentic self, and around the world, you should represent yourself.
Right. I'm just using
you should present yourself in a better way. No, I know. And I know that that's a common quote, but I want that quote to be the other way around. I want people to start thinking like
eggshells
that.
around the world because the world will stay right where it is if you're afraid to make a movement.
No, you can make movements. Just be nice to people.
But that wasn't directed at any particular person, was it?
That was directed at big-breasted women.
Poor women. Poor women who probably get a shitload of money and get to sleep with a millionaire. I feel so bad for them.
No, and don't get me wrong. I'm all for sex workers. Sex workers make the world go around. Love them to pieces. But, I'm just saying it could be offensive to a different demographic of people. And I understand why he was asked to step down.
I'm just saying because certain people are pussies doesn't mean the rest of the world has to be. If you are completely offended by what somebody says, doesn't mean the rest of the world has to be offended with you. And I don't think these companies, and this is the argument I had was why I originally brought it up, the company should not have to cave into that kind of pressure.
And how do we know that the company caved into that without the company seeing the video and then just decided that on their own?
We don't know the company saw that, but this is not the first instance of something like this happening where they have been pressured to let people go. Everything from allegations with Kevin Spacey, the guy who was the Flash. What's his name?
I know who you're talking about.
I can't remember his name. Roseanne, another example we used on there. That they're pressured into doing this. It would be instantaneous. This stuff is not instantaneous. It doesn't happen until after it's publicized. You know, people aren't suddenly fired. It's publicized and then they get fired. It's publicized and then they resign or step down. It's not, hey, why did he step down? Because he said this. It's, oh my God, he said this. We're getting told that we better drop this guy. We're going to drop this guy. That's what should not happen. He's an asset to your company or you wouldn't have made him vice president.
No, but he's not an asset anymore if they don't fire him or force him to step down. He's no longer an asset because there's people that are going to go around and boycott the product and the company's going to lose money.
Have you ever met an Apple user? Nobody's boycotting
the product.
One. Nobody's boycotting the product.
No, I wouldn't because I don't give a fuck what he said. I could give two shits.
Won't.
But I understand other people that would. And that's fine and valid. Like everyone's feelings are always valid. I understand that he's probably pretty pissed off that he was asked to step down. I get that.
And but he delivered as usual an apology, you know, and I get all that. He did deliver his apology. Sometimes when somebody has not done anything wrong like this or does not have a record of it, maybe give them the benefit of the doubt. Because you know what, even in your job and your stance right now, if you had a good employer, a good person, or somebody who was there for you, you might be willing to say, don't let this shit happen again. That's not appropriate in this place. One more time. This is it. You do it once more, you're gone, period. But there are times where you give people the benefit of the doubt because they've never done something like this before. They've never exhibited
Asking
this
him to
behavior.
step down into a lower position is still giving him a second chance.
Not necessarily, well, not, and again, this is the most recent example, but not every example works that way. Not every one of
No,
them
I know
is
that.
just step down. And it's where we're going with it that matters. And major companies have shareholders. Very good point, Robin, which is why they get the pressure.
I
But
said that 5 times already. You guys don't listen to me.
What, Bill? Did you say something?
I said shareholders 5 times. You guys weren't listening to me. But let me go back to this. Number one,
Hi,
they're
Jan.
doing
How
a
you doing?
remake of, hi, Jan. They're doing a remake of White Men Can't Jump, coming out soon. Number 2, the highest vertical jump right now, unofficial until, what is it? Well, this is October. Sometime this October is a little white guy vertical jump. Just saying.
All right. All right. My last.
Good for that little white guy.
Good for the little white guy. I mean, good for all.
I had to
I
throw
just,
that in there just because.
no, I
So.
appreciate it. I do appreciate
Well,
it.
I
right now.
haven't said anything about sex show, my gay friends, white trash Christmas, anything. So
I just
Okay.
finished that.
I almost took that glass down. He just filled them all in. But I mean, agree, obviously, to disagree on some aspects of this, but at the same time, I
Oh,
just wish
absolutely.
people would let things slide a little bit. Point out it's wrong. Point out you
No, and I
have a
get that.
problem.
But I'm
Let it
tired
go.
of letting rich white men get away with murder. Not actual
Good.
murder. I mean, yeah, a lot of
Yeah,
them
but
get
you
away with
don't
actual
do
murder,
it by
but-
chopping their hand off at the first incident of something they've done for the last 50 years.
Well, we
You
don't know
get it
how he
to
was
them.
performing for the company. He might have been doing a bad job too. We don't have all
Well,
the facts.
Maybe not, and maybe he was, but then they hired somebody who did a bad job to begin with, so that's on them. But
Yeah.
they kept him, so he was doing something right. You
Yeah.
know, so it's a rocky road because I do want all the things kind of that you want too, but I also want to be able to have fun at other
No, and I
people's or
love
groups'
having fun,
expense.
Keith. You don't have to tell me to have
No,
fun
I know
twice.
that.
I love having fun. But people need to be held accountable for their actions.
Okay, well,
Specifically,
let's talk about
rich
that.
white
Let's
men.
talk about that. Let's talk about people's accountability for actions. There's another topic I want to approach. Is anybody familiar with what basically police auditing is? That citizens and people have been doing. You've probably seen videos on TikTok, stuff like that, or Facebook. Are you familiar with that?
Fill me in.
So basically, what these people are now doing, they're going up to cops and they're causing a problem intentionally because they're within their rights.
Oh,
to
that
do
I think is
so.
bullshit. Go about your way, mind your own fucking business.
And this is becoming a
Because those
huge
are just
problem.
people trying to cause problems.
And they're right. They're within their rights to do it. But they are spreading so much shit that they're going to get regular individuals in trouble. And they're spreading a lot of misinformation about how the law really works.
No, yeah, and I'm not for the spreading of misinformation. So fuck that.
Are the police that bad?
They
Do
can
they
be.
need to be audited by us citizens, every single one of them, at a regular traffic stop?
you get a lot of people right now because the police are now wearing body cameras and they're actually recorded in what they're doing and how they're acting. And the people
And
don't
I think
like
all
it because they can't get away
No.
with anything. And when
No,
they can't
exactly.
get away with anything, they're trying to go back the other way. So
Very for the body cams because everything should be recorded because there have been so many instances in our country where police are taking their power and running with it, and that's a fucking problem.
I agree and disagree simultaneously because I don't think there's been so many incidents. I
How many
have to
black
do
men have
it.
been shot?
I have to do it by a comparison of the number of incidents that actually happen versus the ones we view. And percentage-wise, there have not been as many as people are making it out to be. What these videos are doing is they're making people believe that every cop is corrupt. Every
No, and I
cop doesn't know their job. I'm not saying that the racial injustices that happen are very real and something that definitely we have to take care of. But I had somebody who, there was one of the videos I watched, and there was a black guy hovering around a house. And they pulled over, said, we're just making sure you live here. Can we just see some ID? And we're cool. This was the video. And all I did, you don't have to see my ID or nothing. You don't have the right. Do you have a warrant? Do you have a arrest thing? Do you have anything like that? I live here. Show the ID. It's because I'm black. Because I'm black, you don't want me to do this. They're creating such a bad name for everyone, not only the police, but also for black people in general, because black people don't act that way either in general.
Right.
You know, you show your ID. If you live there, show your ID. I don't have to show
No,
you
and
my ID.
I've seen a lot of these people. It's not just
Yes.
black people doing it.
No, it's not. But I'm saying
The majority of the
merging
ones
all into
I've
one.
seen are white people doing it.
I've seen a ton of white people doing it because they're trying to police it too. Yeah, I wasn't meaning racist, but you had brought up recently the police shot a
No,
black
I
man
know,
and stuff,
I know.
which is why I used that example. But yeah, they're creating such a bad name for the police, and they're making the public believe, because I'm sorry, TikTok people and viewers, and not everybody, but they're stupid. We live in a society where you believe everything you hear and see.
Right. And like for
Sadly.
me personally, I am like on both sides of this, because if I get pulled over because I'm doing something wrong, or even if I don't know I'm doing something wrong, if I get pulled over and that cop asks me for my license and registration, I'm going to give it to that police officer.
You give it to them.
Because
But these
that's what you're
videos are
supposed to do.
showing, but the videos are
But-
showing you don't have to.
No, but on the flip side of that, like let's say I am at a protest and I know I'm within my rights, I'm not doing anything illegal. If a cop comes up to me and says, "Show me your ID," I'll fight him. So like I understand both sides of it, but I don't
those are
understand
two
just a
completely different
routine-
situations.
No, I know. I don't understand it happening for like a routine traffic stop. There is probable cause to stop you and you not presenting your ID and then trying to get TikTok famous. Because I think that's what this is about. I think they're trying to get TikTok
It is.
famous.
But I think it's having
So-
such a negative impact.
Oh, absolutely. Because you're wasting everyone's time. You're wasting your
Well,
time. You're
that
wasting
for
that
sure.
officer's time. Like you're wasting so many people's time and it's not fucking worth it. You can have an issue with police officers if they're doing something fucking wrong. You getting pulled over because you're circling the same house for 35 minutes. They're just making sure everything's cool and kosher.
Right.
That's their job.
But here's what it's going to lead to, and this is an agreement with you too, but to anybody else, is where it's going to lead is to police are going to be scared to go off of hunches. And police work
Which is
a
bad.
very large percent based on their hunches,
Yeah.
based on suspicious activity or what it appears to be. And you're going to create a situation where when you're being robbed, the police are not going to help you anymore.
And
And
I
why aren't they
definitely
allowed to
believe
do that anymore?
Which part?
They're not allowed to do that anymore because they call it racial profiling.
Mm-hmm.
And
Well,
it
that's
doesn't
when
matter
race
if-
involved. But it's not even
It
just
doesn't matter what
race.
color you are. It doesn't matter
Yeah.
what color you are.
Okay,
It's
that's
still
fine.
called racial profiling all the time. The only thing, other thing I wanted to say to, because Elena made a comment, she goes, if I'm at a protest, they ask me for my identification. If you're at a protest and a cop's going to arrest you, he's not going to ask you for identification until they after you get you to the station and they arrest you.
Well,
I've
that's
been there,
true.
so.
But she's saying but that's true. But she's saying if a police officer did ask for her identification at the protest,
Right,
I
fight
believe
him.
she'd have every right to fight against that, because
Fight him.
you're doing something for your right. You don't need to be drawn out and singled out basically at all. They
Right.
don't
But
need
if
to
I
know your
get
information.
stopped at a traffic stop, here's my ID.
Right, that's part of the thing.
Here's
When
my
you
ID.
do this argument, you see, I used to see like one or two people that did this randomly. I'd see a Facebook post where I saw something like this. And now it is like, because you view one with the algorithms, you'll see 1,000. And it's just, there's so many of them on there, and I'm disgusted with it because you are destroying, you're going to create chaos in our world. And you're going to have no one to
Yeah.
help you, no one to defend you. And like I said, with the one walking around the house, you could have pulled out your ID. You were videotaping this.
Mhm.
So you should have pulled out your ID, proved you lived there. And if anything happened afterwards, you got every right to post that shit because it's bullshit.
Yeah.
But you didn't give the opportunity. You assume what those police officers are going to do. And then the people watching assume with you what they're going to do. And they believe they can get away with the same thing. To the police are not going to want to help you. Because if it was my house, I would be glad that the police checked. Even if I was the one there, maybe I was breaking in my window because I didn't have a key. I want the police to stop me. I want to know that people are looking out there and watching out for me. But they're not going to. Because heaven forbid they're going to lose their jobs because they're watching out and going off instinct and hunches, which is a good part of police work. The police do not deserve the name they are getting. most of them, just like, and I'm going to go government as well. There are so many people that work for government that are doing their job. Police are doing their job. They care about you. They care about the health and safety of you and your family. They are trying
Like,
to
yeah,
make a better world. And you
there's
are
absolutely bad cops, but
100%
most of them are good.
right. There are bad people everywhere. There are bad fucking karaoke hosts. There are bad
No, and
teachers. There are bad
I think
cops.
I think me
Fuck off.
starting at this new salon has like really helped me open my eyes to a lot of things, because most
Hi,
of my
Brandon.
new coworkers, oh hi, most of my new coworkers are pretty right winged, and before I was in this type of work environment, I would just like jump to conclusions about people
Mhm.
once I knew their political standing, or like once they made one comment meaning one thing, I would just assume the whole rest of them. And I know that a lot of other people do this too, but I think that since I'm in this new environment where I'm getting to talk to people day to day that believe in a lot of different things as me, most people don't suck.
I mean, that's true. I mean, one of the arguments that I've made when we have gotten to political conversation is I've made the argument several times that I don't blame people who voted right in the election. I disagree with them, but I don't blame people who voted that way, because I talked to them, and most of them did it because they wanted what was best, they thought would be best for them and their country. Right or wrong, blind or not, they weren't voting out of hate. And
No,
people
and that I agree with to an extent, because
there's several
still
that did,
have
but
no, there's several issues I have with a lot of people that voted in a particular way in the 2020 election, because that's the reason that a lot of women are losing their right to abortion. But we're not going there. That's a different show and whatnot.
and I mean, it all goes back to the same thing. Everything we've talked about goes back to public pressure.
Yeah.
Everything we've talked about on this show, and everything from the abortion rights and everything like that. It's like I said before, Joe Blow in his basement, Jane Doe just sitting there, a Karen, I guess you'd call him, or anything, putting up the argument just for the sake of publicity and popularity, making corporations, making government cave into demands instead of setting a better precedent for a better life. You cannot go from the extreme of, like you said, which was wrong for so many years, decades, centuries, women have been demeaned and put down and made to feel like lesser of a human being, as well as multiple races. But you cannot go
still
today. And still today, but way better.
Oh, it's definitely better, but it's absolutely still happening.
Not as good as it was 10 years ago, because 10 years ago was even better yet, because we understood instead of being berated for all of it. We learned, I'm sorry, but from 1990 to 2012, 2013, probably somewhere in there, we were on a learning streak. We were making things better.
We absolutely were, but
now we're on a fear run.
But I'm trying to decide how I want to approach this, because when you say that, the first thing that comes to my head, because we're talking about women, is just like equality between men and women. And I gotta tell you, Keith, between 1990 and 2000, women were still getting raped up
absolutely
high numbers of women getting raped. So yes, we were on the learning curve, but it was still fucking happening, and it's still happening today.
People don't suck. A lot of guys going to be disappointed. That's funny. They were, but they. Okay, if we laugh, we'll get canceled. Bill, be careful. Elena can laugh. We can't.
Hey, so
you guys can laugh
one
too, because it was obviously funny. And
well, for some people, going back to the initial one, I think that the phrase that he said was obviously funny. Yes, I know, because I referenced a movie. But for a lot of people, it was just obviously
40 years
funny.
ago.
Who cares? So was Star Wars.
I understand, but people on 90% of people on TikTok have never heard of that movie before, because most of the people on TikTok are 24 or younger.
So we're punished for their lack of education on film.
Because it was I wouldn't say you're not punished. He's punished. You're not.
I assume everybody has seen the movie Jurassic Park.
I've never seen
I
the original.
assume no, I get that. I assume everybody's seen Back to the Future. I'll talk to somebody in their 20s. You're right. Because they are so prominent in our backstory, you naturally assume the things that really impacted you growing up are going to, like I said, my Married with Children quotes. Most people haven't even seen that show that are under the age of 30.
Nope.
But it was so prominent in my culture, I was used to it, my growing up. Like, you don't think that way all the time. And I'm sure you've been in a situation at some point, probably not as much as Bill or I have, where you've referenced something and you're like, oh my God, that was when you were born or before you were born. Well, that's what happens. You make the reference, though, not even thinking that sometimes because it was such a part of your culture.
And I get that, but I guess the difference is, unless I'm in a bar or like hanging out with just my like friends, like I watch what I say because that's what you should do when you're talking to a stranger because you don't know what that stranger is going to find funny or not funny.
But the best and funniest moments you have in any conversation are because of what people weren't expecting to say what they say.
That's why I say them to my friends or in a bar situation. Not when
But you
someone runs
can't
up to me on the
always
street.
plan it out. We are not a fun group of people if we plan out everything we say. We are not surprising. We are not, engaging enough if we have to plan out everything we say to make sure it's going to go, completely kosher with our group.
And Keith, I fully understand that. Like, I live in a big city. I live in downtown Grand Rapids. There are TikTokers that come up to me while I'm walking to work. Like, that happens to me all the fucking time.
Mm-hmm.
And I've never every single time a TikToker runs up to me and asks me like, oh, like, how much do you make a year and what do you do for work? Or how much student loan debt are you in? And I'm going to guess what your job is or something like I've been asked so many of these questions on camera and I've never once said something that could be taken as inappropriate because I know I'm on film. I know that.
So
that's
you're
gonna be
just as
posted on the
guilty as
internet.
everybody else.
What do you mean?
I mean that because you grow up and have knowledge fully about TikTok and are used to it and are the age group of the people that do TikTok, you know exactly what they know, what they don't know, what you should say. Well, people who are being interviewed.
I was grown up. I was raised by people that like my parents are like a little bit younger than Bill. But like I was raised by like people of Bill's generation and they've told me
I'm 29. I am 29. I'm premature gray. God.
But those people who raised me did not grow up with the internet. And when the internet was coming out and I was learning about the internet, they said, don't put anything on the internet that you don't want to be held against you.
Mm-hmm.
So people of Bill's age are the ones who taught me that.
They also
did
not understand at all how internet and computers worked, and they were spreading false information as well. What they said was good advice. Don't put anything on the internet you don't want people to know and stuff like that.
So
but not everybody
not
is familiar.
Holding people to accountable for putting things on the internet that they shouldn't have put on the internet.
Because you understand the demographic of who views TikTok. You understand the people. You grew up with that. You are fully aware.
The vice president of Apple knows who's on TikTok.
But you're saying, as far as he's probably concerned, hopefully everybody, and there's a lot of people in high power, even in computer industries, that don't fully understand TikTok because they got in programming in a garage.
I'm talking about the internet in general. You don't say shit on the internet that could upset someone because that's on there forever. Like everybody fucking.
Especially now because it's Meta and they got control of everything.
They always have, especially what Facebook has. Facebook is fucking genius from a corporate marketing standpoint. They're actually genius. Robin says, just remember, if you get pulled over, and back to the cop thing, which is important, and ask for ID, don't say, call your wife. I think I left it in the bedroom. Ask Uncle Bill. So their backstory here.
You shithead. All right, so I got pulled over by a state.
Story time.
I got pulled over by a state trooper the one night. All right, I had a small buzz, like 2 beers, and I hadn't drank in a while. So he pulled me over because he goes, your license plate has no light above it. I said, oh, I'm sorry. I said, I didn't know that. He goes, I need your ID. I was like, no warning, no nothing. He goes, well, I still need your ID. And I was like, well, I said, I think you need to call your wife. I said, I think I left it in the bedroom.
See, that's an inappropriate thing to say to a police officer.
I totally agree. But I think it's funny.
Like,
he laughed his ass off. He laughed his ass off. All all right, and said, "Do you got your ID with you?" And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "You got your registration?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Go home." And I drove on home.
Yeah, probably not the best, most appropriate to say. I agree with you too, Elena, but it is funny. It really is.
No,
And
yeah,
that's
it's funny, but that's not what you're supposed to say to a police officer.
because some of the things that make us laugh and that is the most funny are things that you're not necessarily supposed to say.
I have been told by state troopers, by city cops here in Hazel Park, by city cops and Warren, everything like that. If you're polite to a police officer when it comes to your car, or if you can make a joke, you're less likely to go to jail or get in trouble and stuff, as long as you're not
Honestly, the biggest thing
too
that I've always
disruptive.
gone with, if you treat them like a human being with a job, you're
That's what I
going
do.
to be
Respect.
fine.
Respect.
Yeah.
Respect.
See, I'm
Because
pretty
we often
lucky.
forget. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, just we often forget that people who work for law enforcement, people who work in government, people who work security, the majority are human beings. There are a few I'd like to point out that I don't think are, but the majority of them are human beings with families
and
and lives.
They
they're-
think
This is my
they're
Ripley.
doing what's best.
And you think it's hard to get pulled over by a cop? Imagine how that cop feels when they're a good cop, afraid they're going to get shot walking up to your car every
Yeah.
single day.
No,
They've got one of the
absolutely.
hardest jobs in the world. They do not need small white punks that think they know all about the law interacting and disrupting their job.
Why do they got to be white? Why do they got to
Because
be white?
what we're talking about with a lot of the auditing has to do, there's more white people doing
It's
this police
mostly
auditing
white people.
than there are. And that's the ones that I think are given the biggest problem. I mean, if they're black, they're probably throwing the race card. And I'm not saying that to cause controversy, but if
You
you
were
watch
talking
these
about the police
videos,
auditing.
they pretty much are.
You
Yeah,
were talking
police
about the police auditing, all right?
Yeah.
Most of the police auditing that's going on right now, unfortunately, is of young black males.
No, okay.
No, it's mostly
talking. Wait, Bill,
young
Elena,
white
generational gap. We're talking about two
Oh.
different kinds of police auditing right now.
Yes.
What we're talking
Yes,
about
we are.
is the like TikTok video police auditing and YouTube shorts and Facebook and stuff, where they're doing videos where just your average citizen is trying to catch police not knowing their job, not knowing law, and showing that they are better than police officers because they know how to fight, and they're just a bunch of douchebags that are making life harder for everybody else who might generally someday need help.
Oh, absolutely.
There's too many people out there that go on the internet and shit like that, and they think they read a law, even though it's not even comparable in your mind unless you're a fucking lawyer. They think they know that law, and they take that into their hands or into their head and go out and try to do stupid shit sometimes. So
Yeah, well, especially if you're driving, you get pulled over. I don't have to show you my ID. Yeah, you do. And I'm sorry, newsflash for everybody who watches these, because these drivers are always saying, if you're driving a motor vehicle, you need your fucking ID. I don't
Anywhere
care
It's
who you are.
illegal to not have your ID on you ever.
if you're out in public, that's right. If you're
there are
out in
states
public,
that
you
that
have to
is
have
not.
your ID.
There are states where that is not true, but in many states, it is absolutely true. Even to be in public,
In
you must have
Michigan, you have
identification
to.
on. That's why I
Yeah.
said you have to have ID on your person if you are going to be in public. Period. You should be carrying ID at all times. It is the
You
law.
can get
Don't
caught
let these
for
videos fuck
drunk
with
driving on a bicycle in Michigan.
you. Mm-hmm. Well,
I
that's
could
public
be walking
drunkenness.
down the well, no, absolutely. I could be walking down the street, and if a cop asks me if I have my ID, like, I don't think I legally have to show it to him, but I legally have to have it on my person.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you don't necessarily have to show it to. You don't have to show him to details. He does not have the right to run that ID or anything. But you
But
have
I
to
can-
prove
I
you
can-
have
I
it
can-
on. Yes,
I can hold it up like this and say, yes, it's right here, and then put it back in my pocket.
absolutely. And that's what,
Yeah.
that's where people are getting the wrong impression that they don't have to. You absolutely do. It's part of the law. And I'll tell you, even if you didn't and it was not part of the law to have it, if you're pulled over and you show your ID and you fucking cooperate, you're going to be in a hell of a lot better situation than you will be with those, 100,000 views.
Right.
Because
I do want to tell a quick little story. So
Go
I'm
ahead.
very privileged, and I've only ever been pulled over once in my entire life. I was 19 years old. I was on my way home from work. I was a bartender. It was super fucking late. It was probably like 3 a.m. Driving home. I worked like 3 miles away from my house, so it's not a far drive. On my way home, I knew I was speeding. I was going 7 miles an hour over the speed limit. Like, I consciously decided to do that. It was not an
Right,
accident. And I was driving right by the police station, which I knew was also fucking dumb. But I was in Lake Orion, Michigan. Like, nothing bad ever happens in Lake Orion, Michigan. So I'm driving home. I'm going 7 over the speed limit. And I also had to be back at work at 10, and it's 3 a.m. And I still need to eat, shower, and sleep. Like, I'm trying to get home as soon as possible. So I see the lights. I get pulled over, and I'm like, I'm annoyed. And for me to be this sassy with the cop, I understand I can do that because of privilege. I get that. That's fine. So he pulls me over, and he's like, do you know why I pulled you over? And everyone always says, never answer that truthfully, because you might just be telling them something that they weren't pulling you over for. But I was just trying to get home I was just trying to get home as soon as possible. I was like, I was going 7 over. They're like, oh, so and you were still doing it? I'm like, yeah, there's no one on the road. I understand it's illegal. Can you just write me the ticket and I can go home? Like, that's what I said to him. I was like, that's fine. I just want to get home. And he was like, well, have you been drinking tonight? And I'm like, no. Like, this is after I've already handed him all of my documents and whatnot. I said, no, officer, I'm 19 years old. He goes, I didn't fucking ask how old you are. I asked if you'd been drinking tonight. I said, well, fair. No, I have not. I'm on my way home. I'm a bartender. He goes, you smell like a brewery. I'm like, well, I'm a bartender. So then he's like, hold on 1 second. Goes back to his car. He's in his car for over 10 minutes. Super irritating. Comes back and goes, do you mind stepping out of the car for me? And I said, is it going to get me home faster? He goes, probably. I'm like, okay, fine. Getting out of the car, whatnot. So I get out of the car, and he's like, do you consent to a breathalyzer test? I said, absolutely. Let me blow, man. I'll get the fuck home. Cool with it. So I blow. He looks at it, goes and sits in his, he says, stay here, goes and sits in his car for another 10 fucking minutes. He never told me I could get back in my vehicle. So I stood outside, like I'm supposed to. And he comes back and he's like, so it appears you blew zeros. I'm like, yeah, like I said, I haven't been drinking tonight. He goes, why isn't this car registered to you? And I was like, well, I'm 19. It's like, it's my car, but like it's in my dad's name because it makes insurance cheaper. And he goes, well, how do I know that this is your dad? And I'm like, because we have the same last name, maybe. And my ID still has his same address on it because I just moved out a month ago. Like maybe that'll help you out. Like I could also show you like my health insurance card that has his name on it, if that'll be more helpful for you. I don't really know what you want from me right now. I didn't steal the car. If you want me to call him, he'll tell you I'm his daughter, maybe. I don't know. Goes and sits in his car for another 10 fucking minutes. So I've been at this traffic stop for 40 minutes now. And he comes back and he goes, I guess you're free to go. I'm like, bye. It was the most annoying thing in my entire life.
Yeah.
Like, he just wanted a reason to like take me to jail.
And you do run across that with a lot of them. And I do agree with that. They'll constantly look for something or some reason. And sometimes, and I think it's right and wrong simultaneously, because I do believe that some of their work is based on judgment and suspicion.
Yeah.
And
No,
if
and I get
there's
that, and that's
no
fine,
reason,
but I'm a 19-year-old woman.
No.
at this point. Like,
I agree with you. Like, it was a bullshit.
do you think
stop.
I stole the car?
But
I
if
could
they
understand
had,
when I rolled down the window, you thought I was drinking because I smelled like a fucking bar. I could have lied and told you I was a bartender. Like, you didn't know that. That's fair. But it's like, you're going to question me on if, like, my dad is my dad. Like, are you fucking kidding me?
right?
Like,
You were
I'm
supposed to
19
say-
and I told you I'm driving my dad's car, and we have the same last name, and you're still questioning me. Like, at this point, you're just being a douchebag.
That's what I mean. That's
You were
when it goes.
supposed to
Like,
say
I
I'm a
don't.
bartender, but I didn't say I was a good bartender. I may have spilled something on me. So
Well, at the
Which
time, I
definitely
wasn't a
comes
good
in.
bartender. Now I'm a good bartender, and I still spill shit all the fucking time. It's like part of the job to spill shit.
Well, I definitely want to thank you for joining us tonight. It's been good to get back to these shows. I miss these. I hope we'll get to talk about a lot more stuff. We don't have anything actually scheduled right now. Like I said, we're trying to get panels. We're trying to get more people. And those that are watching the chat, please join us. We're looking for people that want to be part of these shows as well, where you can discuss anything openly and freely without judgment. We'll argue. We'll banter back and forth sometimes. But you can say what you
We
want.
need fresh meat. Everyone's
And
sick
we
of
need
me.
fresh meat. Yeah, they're not sick of you. They're
I
sick of
am
me.
fresh meat. Yeah, man.
There's been
No,
one
they're not.
show since we've done this thing that I've not been on. One, and I even had to appear at the end. I was like, so technically
But
none.
Keith, everyone loves you.
You were in the background and you were commenting and cutting in. So
I'm referring to viewership, people viewing it. They have not really seen me on one, so they're getting tired of that. I know that, but no, we do
No,
have a
they're
lot of
not.
fun. We like to talk about different things and some major topics as well. We need panelists to help do that, so just contact us through Ear Shoulder Voice. We'd love to have you on board with that. Other than that, thank you for being here for this open forum. We might be doing a show Wednesday, we might not. We're looking for topics, those are topic Wednesdays, but we'll do our damnedest to be back here for next Sunday as well, hopefully, to do this again and talk about new things. We had a lot to cover this time.
Sex show Wednesday. Sex
so
show
much
Wednesday.
with no sex show. No fucking
Sex
A,
show
though.
Wednesday. All right. We can
I
have all my
want to do a sex show. I think it'd be fun.
Well, we will. We got to get the people for it. Halloween's coming up, so we should have some fun with that coming around the corner. Only a month away, not even. After that is November,
last
election time.
Halloween movie.
The last thing I want to
Halloween
mention.
movie.
Yep, on the 14th. So I also want to remind people that there's a month left about till the polls open for voting, to where you're going to be able to vote on a lot of things for the midterms. And just do yourself and everybody around there a favor and don't listen to all the shit you see through social media. Start researching and figure out who you want to vote for based on qualifications, what they can do, what they're for, what aligns with what you're for, and vote that way. Don't vote
And
out of
get
hate.
out there and do it. So few people actually are able to get to midterms. Like, do it.
And do absolute best to get out there and vote. It's very important. We're finally in an era where people are paying attention. And if you want to see major change, whether that change aligns with me or doesn't, vote for what aligns with you. Vote for what you want. And then the majority will actually speak out of what they want instead of what they hate. I think that's important.
Yes.
So you all take care.
Everyone
Thank
write
you.
in Keith for every office there is. So boom.
And well, in 2 years, get some independence on that fucking ballot. All right. All right. You all have a great night. Thank you again for being here. Bye.
When you're alone and feeling down, and you're 10 feet underground, when you're so deep you're about to drown, when you're in the lost and found, 'cause heartaches only last a day. Ooh, but your heart will never fade away. Go out and find your way. Don't let them take your soul away. Not a week, not a single day. Hold true to what you wanna be. Never let go, and here's the key. Be you, yeah, only you, only you. Be you, yeah, only you, only you.
Was that loud? Was the music
Loud?
loud? Was the music like extra loud?
No.
Okay. It is to me. I don't know why. I have my volume turned on. I probably got some settings messed up or something. It was like really loud. I was hoping it wasn't loud like for out there.
No,
Anyway,
it seemed fine for me.
I miss
Also,
you.
I have a really good after show question for you.
Okay.
How have you been? No one ever asks you that, and I don't like it.
It's
So I'm
supposed to be that
changing that
way.
now. No,
I actually-
I'm changing it now.
I'm not going to talk a lot about how I've been because I'm reserving some of the stuff for a show coming up. But I've been
fair.
doing better. I've been making certain changes in respect to people in my life and people who pretty much use me to their advantage repeatedly without
Well,
any
good for
concern
you.
in back. So I've been making some changes there, and it's hard and it hurts, but I've been feeling better because of it. Struggling
Good.
because I'm dealing with mortgage companies who have fucked me like many other people out there over because of COVID.
I saw your Facebook post about it. I want to know more about it. I mean, I understand if you don't want to talk about it right here, but I
No, it's fine.
hear about it.
Basically, to put me through a 6-month COVID stay where they forego everything for 6 months because of COVID, you can't pay. And I didn't do it for a year and a half. And finally I gave in. I'm like, I need this help,
Yeah.
We'll do it. And we were in the middle of modification. Well, then they remodified loan. Interest rate went up 4%. Loan changed from 30 to a 40 year. The loan amount went up $100,000. My payment went up $500 a month.
That's fucked.
Yep. And if I don't subscribe to that, they're going to foreclose the house.
That's fucked up.
That's what I got for going on a COVID stay. If I wouldn't have, I would be 6 months behind. That's it. And I would have had to make
Is
that up.
Have you found out yet if that's like legal?
It's legal. It's legal through loophole.
But like, that's
I
so
know.
fucked up.
It was. It's literally. I had $200,000 equity in this house. I have like $90,000 now because they upped everything. Oh, and they added another $60,000 loan to the end of this loan. That is a loan for the COVID forbearance.
So
there's
by
an
doing
additional
something that was supposed to help you, it just fucked you way more.
way more.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And I feel really bad because I did post about it, but I know I'm not the only one going through this.
No,
If they did it to me,
there's no
they've
way you
obviously
could
done
be.
it to so many people. And it's ridiculous. People are going to lose their houses and everything they've ever had. We're headed to a big crash unless something is done by somebody up high. Something's got to
Dina.
be done.
Call Dina.
I don't even know who Dina is.
Dina Senafani, Channel 2 News. Call.
Oh. Well, no, because I'm not the only one in the boat.
I know, but this is what I'm saying. If you get it out there and it gets on TV and shit, everyone else will apply into it and they'll get into it. And she'll get Charlie on it.
I don't know
Like I
Charlie
said, you
either,
call-
but I'll meet him.
Charlie's the guy. So
But that was the gist of what was going on with that. And I was trying to get out because they were starting foreclosure even on it. Because I'm like, I wouldn't sign the paperwork. I'm like,
Yeah.
you want me to sign to a 10 plus year mortgage, actually, because I've been in it for 5 years, it actually added 15 years to it because it was a fresh new mortgage. So,
Right.
yeah, so it'd be actually 15 plus another 60,000 plus 500 a month that I can't pay. Why would I
That's
sign the
absolutely
inevitable?
fucked up.
And I'm going
Right.
to end up signing it because I have
and they
to.
got the lot of mortgage companies are selling the mortgages to different companies and stuff, and that's what they're doing, unfortunately, too. So
Yeah, it's
not
just
even
ridiculous.
honestly, like Bill is super right now. Like taking it to the press because it is affecting so many other people just might get it out there, and then maybe someone can help you because more people hear about it.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about mortgages.
Well, that's
I've
that's
never
why
had a
I was
mortgage.
also looking into finding out exactly how legit it was. But sadly, like I said, I talked to a lot of mortgage people since that post, and a lot of
Okay,
financials are like,
so
it's not right what they're doing. They're 100% agreeing, but there's nothing
Yeah.
illegal about what they're doing.
that's not the people you want to talk to, Keith. You don't want to talk to mortgage people. You don't want to
No.
talk to people who work
Bill,
for a mortgage company.
I get that, but
ahead.
I'm talking just to like save my house.
He just
and find
needed
out what they're
advice.
doing.
Yeah.
And
Right.
I do believe it's got to get out there because now that I know what they're doing is legal, but wrong. That gives me more something to fight rather than I was calling these places going, oh no, that's how it's going to work. Being told enough now that what they're doing is wrong is helping. So then I'll take the steps forward from there. But I was on foreclosure of a sale on September 23rd. I was fighting that. So I'm trying to find out what can I do. I need to refinance. I need to do whatever.
Yeah.
But nobody's
All
taking
right.
anybody.
So you're a guy that I talk to, and you know how to talk to people. You know how to express your opinion. You know how to do everything like that, verbally and everything like that. That's what I'm saying. Call the media. Call Dina Senafani at Channel 2.
I probably will, but I've got to put myself in a better place right now, just emotionally.
Yeah.
For me. I need to figure out where I'm going, the steps I want to take. I don't want to do anything off of a whim.
Right. No, I get that.
Well, you don't have to walk out to them with the cameras and having the gun belts and the bullets across your chest and stuff. Just go out there and be you.
Those are supposed to come in Friday. There's a delay shipping with Amazon. So now I got to return them. But other than that, everything's been going good. And I miss you guys. I'm glad you were here. I want to do these again. I hope we get people to do them. You guys are
I do
always.
too.
I know we're going to.
I love it.
Elena, your hair looks very pretty tonight. Just so you
I
know.
have a
thank you.
feeling we're going to get better in the winter again because we always do get a little better in the winter once summer's over. We always lose
Yeah, people get bored.
participants.
Yeah, and see,
Yeah.
so all those guys
they're
during the
out
summer that said
or
no,
drunk.
just say, yeah, no, we can't use you. We're going to use these people. So
Yeah, pretty much.